Welcome to an incomplete guide to personal growth. We invite you to take a breath and take a listen to our podcast that explores the wonder, humor, challenges, and sometimes those self-inflicted wounds on the journey of personal growth.
Our weekly podcast conversations include stories, resources, and tools that you can incorporate into your daily life. We're the mother-daughter duo of Sydney West
and Kelly Arundel. Hey, Sydney.
Hi, Mom.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited. We have Jennifer Kennedy with us today, and we'll be introducing her further in a little bit. Good to have you with us. And you're in Colorado, I believe.
I am, yes. Colorado
right?
Springs, Colorado.
Okay,
yep.
Great. Yes, and y'all have an Olympic training place near there.
We
Don't
do,
you?
yes. People come to train here for the altitude. Yep.
Okay,
Wow.
That's great because I've been thinking about the Olympics.
Yes.
Because they were just on, and I didn't get to watch as much as I usually do. But that's okay, But the thing is, I didn't know there were sports that they had, certain sports that they had, and so I was looking at the list.
Oh yeah.
And some of this I never get to see.
Break dancing.
Well, they call it breaking, but it's break dancing is a new sport this year.
That is so funny.
And I didn't, I didn't see any of that. And I thought that was interesting to be a sports. I didn't see any of the cycling, the BMX bikes.
Oh, yeah.
I guess they probably had that in the past. I don't know if you follow
what they do in X Games.
I honestly don't get a chance to watch much of it either, so I'm right there with you.
So you're right with us, right?
Yeah.
I think the highlight was Snoop Dogg. I enjoyed that. I just want a whole box set of that. I don't need the Olympics. I just need him.
Of Snoop Dogg's commentary.
I do.
Oh
and
gosh.
Handball, I didn't know that was one, but it is.
Yeah.
And I've seen that.
That's pretty common.
But squash, I never saw any of that on TV.
I don't think they showed. They show badminton.
No, I wish they would show more badminton and ping pong.
Yes.
That's my style, And I just like, that's about it. So, and I was also trying to think if I did a sport in the Olympics, what would it be?
Oh.
But, every one of them take a lot of effort.
A lot. Even I think like shot put or like javelin throwing, like something where it's a very simple skill, but there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, the hammer throw, but I think my neighbors wouldn't like that. So, broken glass.
Lots of broken glass.
Yeah. And so next Olympics, they're adding some more sports. I'm not sure what they are, but my thought, especially since we're talking about communication this week, is maybe that should be a sport because it feels like you're really,
Yes.
Yes. It takes so much.
It does. And you're worn out afterwards.
Yes.
Or I am.
Yes.
Emotionally.
So we have.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So we have Jennifer here with us today because she, at least to us, is, and maybe hopefully she's not too humble about herself, but kind of an expert in the book Crucial Conversations. She's done training. She's very in that community. But if you want to kind of introduce yourself and what you do and maybe how it kind of came up for you in your workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a trainer for Crucial Conversations for my company, Jable Incorporated. The book was brought to my attention by our somebody near and dear to you, our quality Paul Arundel. Yeah. And so he brought this book to my attention years ago at just a company dinner and was ranting and raving about how amazing this book was and that we had to read it. So we did, right? A couple of us did. This was, again, years ago. So being a project manager for Jable Quality Healthcare, the opportunity came up to not only take the training and in-person training, but also to become a trainer for this content. And I jumped on the opportunity. I love giving trainings. I love facilitating trainings. I'm kind of a people person a little bit. And so it sat right in my wheelhouse. And so I've been going around to different sites and training this content out for the Jable sites, the Jable healthcare sites.
Oh,
that's cool.
Nice. Yes. So just the person we need, because we are focusing on, crucial conversations in the workplace. I know a lot of our listeners are kind of at that either early career or kind of getting into their career stage. And a lot of these conversations are very difficult to have. And so, so you kind of explained some of your background with crucial conversations, which is good. Do you?
Yeah. So when I think of crucial conversations, I don't think of fun, light conversation, right? So what are some of the difficult, what is a crucial conversation?
Yeah.
Well, a crucial conversation, like you said, is very difficult. It's really three main elements, right? It's opposing opinions, high risks, and high emotions. So with those three things, you're really going to have this great, like, perfect storm of things that can go hopefully well or could go oppositely, right? So so this book is really about, like, some tools to kind of navigate that environment and those conversations.
Gotcha.
Okay. So what are some of those tools? One of the things that struck me was safety, creating a safe space, and
a safe space to have the conversation.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's one of the three tools you were thinking of, but what are those?
Yeah, if you haven't read the book, I highly suggest, I know you ladies have, but if you haven't read the book, I suggest you go out, get it in audio book, get it in paperback, get it on whatever device. It's a toolbox, right? And it's not just a one-stop shop. It's not like, this is what you say, this is what you do. It is a toolbox that says, okay, first we need to analyze ourselves. Right? There's a lot of prep work that goes into walking into these conversations. It's not just kicking down your boss's door and saying, we need to have a talk. It's really about, being able to prepare yourself mentally and also just really being in the right mindset to go into these conversations with the right intention. And that's really where it starts. For me, there's a section called Starting with Heart. And starting with heart is really that deep dive, right? Is to what do I want from this interaction? If you go into this interaction thinking, I want to be right, I want to win, right? That's not going to necessarily bring you to a place where you are going to solve any major problems, right? It's not a collaborative space to live in. It's very one-sided. So as much as, I'm sure each of us likes to win or to be right on occasion, for crucial conversations, it's not going to do you any favors. It's really going to doom the conversation. So I think that's the key. Like, the first initial jump off point is really to analyze what is your intention.
Yeah. I love that, because I think so much of so much of growth and so much of, for me, is everything has to start here. Start with me. And not just, not that surface level. Yeah. Because I'm I'm a reactor, so I'm like this. And then so I've really had to learn to go, okay, now you're going to stop and you're going to think before you speak. Yeah. And it may be 2-3 days before you do that. To do that deep dive. It
does. And it could take some time. Like I said, this is not, especially because this is high stakes, right? It could be, a make or break for your job. It could be something that's, really got a big risk factor to it, right? So having these conversations go well means you're going to have to do a little bit of work. You can't be, and I'm the same way, to be honest, reactive. Like, okay, you want to talk? Let's talk. Right? I can be the same way, but but let's, when you slow it down and you really have something to lose, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a job, you need to put in a little pre-work. And that's where Starting with Heart comes in. Also, if you come in with this intention of, well, I'm going to be sneaky and I'm going to try and win and all these, it's going to come off as insincere. So being genuine about your intention is very, very important. Even if the intention is just, I need to better understand, right? I need to better understand, or have you better understand me. Right. So those are those intentions where once you shift it from I want to win to, or I want to be right, to I want to understand, coming from a place of curiosity and being open for that feedback is going to be really key to the conversation going well.
Right. Yeah. And I think, doing that work ahead of time so that you genuinely do have that curiosity, like you've worked through yourself, whatever, initial anger or initial feelings, reactive feelings that you have about it, to then, okay, but this is why I need to fix this. This is why I want to have this difficult conversation so I can move forward, Yeah.
Yes.
So, could you,
go ahead.
Okay. So could you maybe give us an example, either, I mean, you must have a ton because you train it. So either one of those, or maybe for you yourself, of like working through a crucial conversation, like starting with the heart and then what kind of you did through that conversation process.
Yeah.
So starting with heart and mastering our stories was the hardest two pieces. And those are the first two, right? So those kind of are those ones that you have to really look internally and say, okay, get real, right? Get real with yourself. Yes, I've had one that comes to mind is, it's not from a professional perspective. It's more from a personal perspective. My father passed and we are dealing with his trust, which, with anybody passing, it can be, again, those high emotions, right? Opposing opinions, high stakes. So these are, relationship stakes that could possibly be impacted here, right? And we're also dealing with like a third party trustee who manages that. So I went into this like, I am right, you are wrong. This is how it's written, plain and simple. Can't you read? All these. That's how I started when I took on this conversation, right? Then I had to move into, okay, that cannot be my intent. My intent cannot be I am right, you are wrong. My intent then had to move to, I need to understand. Tell me why. Tell me what. Tell me how, right? And it may not be that I came out of that conversation being right, because I wasn't. But I was able to take the reality of what really was, the facts and what really was happening with that. And I was able to then manage it within myself to say, okay, well, at least now I understand why. At least now I understand how. Right. So, it's not going to always be that you come out, on top or come out winning. Right. It's sometimes just going to have to be enough to be okay that you understand why. So that was a big piece for me.
Definitely.
That is good, because we're such a winning and losing society, right? One's ahead, one's not, and to be able to come out just level, just with information, with
definitely,
that's hard.
And mastering my stories, that's another one, right? So again, going in with a good intention, that was step one. Mastering my stories. Oh, I am a good storyteller, let me tell you. Mastering my stories, I was like, this is what's happening. I just know it. They're in cahoots and it's them against me. And it was all this like reeling of like spiraling negativity is really what it was. And so, getting ahead of that. And that was a hard part. Even when I train these classes, it's a hard part to get through when I'm training it out, because people, in general, we take a situation, we make a story. right? I think it's kind of back to that fight or flight.
Yeah.
Oh, it's dark outside. There must be a tiger ready to eat me.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? So,
Yeah.
so when you get it ahead of that and really boil that down to what's a fact and what's a story.
Yeah.
Facts are it's dark outside.
Yeah.
Right? Facts are tigers exist. Is the fact that there's a tiger outside ready to eat me? No, it's a story.
Yeah.
So it's breaking that down, which takes a little bit of work if you're not used to like that concept, right? And managing that so that you're not going in reeling into this spiral of like they're out to get me or any kind of negative spiraling self-talk that we tend to go into, right? So that was another big piece. I think those two components are really where you do that self-work and really where you have to manage that before you ever even step foot into this conversation.
For me, that's a hard thing because I can remember going in, and I'm making assumptions that aren't even near. And then you come out going, why do I waste all my time? With the story. Right?
And energy. You waste a lot of energy, right? You get yourself all hyped up. You get yourself all upset. For what? Right? For what? It's for something that we've made up, basically.
Exactly. And making assumptions is such a habit for so many people that would definitely be one of the harder steps.
Yeah. Okay, so you the heart, the story, managing your story.
And then what?
And then you go in.
So when you go into the book, obviously it's got a lot of steps. We're not going to be able to get all in a 30-minute time frame. And it is a lot of self-work, right? But my key takeaway here is to after you've read the book, do the pre-work. Right. So you're going to go through each one of these steps. You're going to go through learning to look, right, to what is this impacting? Is it impacting? You know, there's a lot of acronyms they use like CPR. And are you looking at the content? So there's all kinds of stuff, right? Like I said, this is a toolbox. So, my recommendation is just to work through it. What I had to do for my experience was to go through, do the pre-work, write it down. Write it down. I even put a little sticky note on my mirror with my intention that before I went into this, I had a meeting, a couple days out, and I put it on a sticky note on my mirror just so that I could keep that intention of understanding in my mind. So, so it's all that pre-work that is going to be kind of a make it or break it.
Because you can only
you can't just like I said, you can't just go in without any idea of what
and then to keep recentering. I think for me in the midst of it, so that my story doesn't go off another direction,
right?
But to keep that,
to keep it,
because
you can only control you through all of it. You can't. And so doing the pre-work, then you can control yourself.
But how wonderful if two people go into a conversation that have gone through this book.
Exactly.
Now.
So that's why I think that they've invested in me training this out through our company is because they see the benefits of this, right? Can you imagine a boss and an employee both had this knowledge, right? Imagine the effectiveness of those conversations.
I love that.
So so that's why I think that we've invested in it as a company, and we're starting to really dive in and train it out. We start with the leadership level because, they have a huge impact, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Hopefully we'll be able to drive down into more of like the professional and the associate level.
I think that's fantastic.
So in your like trainings and stuff, have people like brought to you like their own situations at work? Like, are there any conversations that you think like pop up more than others that people are having difficulty with? Like, what's your experience?
Yes. And it's all across the board because I have different levels of managers, different levels of people who are coming into these classes. Some of them bring in, and during the class, you bring in a situation. having changed the names and nothing, no details. But you come in with a situation that you want to work through, right? Something that you're maybe stuck on. And some of them are personal. One lady was going through divorce, right? So, so that's a much different perspective than somebody who's got an associate who's, pushing back too often, or who's, not following the rules or something along those lines, right? Those are two different kinds of conversations. But the great part about this is that it gives you the tools to manage both of them. Right. So really I've heard a lot of different, and I'm obviously not going to share everything with you guys right now. But, I've heard a lot of different scenarios. It could be teenagers, right? You have teenage kids and you're like, right? So it could be any scenario could be helped by crucial conversation if you apply it correctly.
Oh, fantastic. So, well, because we have a lot of women that listen to our podcast. Do you see a difference in women having more difficulty, or is it easy?
Yeah. Like, do they have to approach these conversations differently, or with a few extra, I don't know, personal work things to do?
There's two perspectives of this, right? Right now I'm training manager level. So from a manager level, when you have women managers, you tend to have women who are more assertive, right? Who are already versed in community. They didn't get there for no reason, right? So I find it less with that, but with it being fearful to have these conversations. I feel like with women, it's more about wanting to do it appropriately, wanting to be considerate. And with men, I think it's a little bit on the opposite, right? They need to go in with a little bit more empathy, right? A little bit more. It's two sides of the coin. But when I went through the training itself, we had all different people in the training when I took the training, and there was a lot of people who were coming from situations where they were more meek and didn't know how to speak up for themselves, right? Didn't know how to assert themselves, didn't know how to use their voice to get their supervisor to understand, right? So I think that this suits both. People who are more assertive will tend to have probably a little bit of an easier time with it, just because you're already kind of there, right? You can already you can go into the conversation with a little bit more confidence. People who might be a little bit more passive or a little more meek might have to just dig in a little deeper and understand that the conversation is important to have. And you can suffer that little bit every day dealing with it, or you can just bundle it up into a ball of energy and get brave and just have that conversation.
That's me.
I think
that's me. I'm the one that's like, I really just want to do it.
And most of the conversations in my head, they're a lot worse than they end up being, because it's now, granted, there are some people who just don't respond, but most of the time they're human beings too, right? I mean, they're all human beings, but most of the time they're human beings that care too. And I've made them out to be something they're not quite. Or how they may respond. I'm making those assumptions again, and usually I may not get what I want. Like I say, it's not a win, but I feel like I've been heard, and that's a major part.
It is a major part. Yes,
feeling that.
Yeah. So there's parts of this book as well, and there's parts in the training that talk about that a little bit, where it's seeking a mutual purpose as well, right? So finding common ground, right? And to your point, you're probably having both sides of that conversation, right? I'm going to say this, they're going to say that, then I'm going to say this, then they're going to say that. So that's not, like, to your point, that's not often how it goes. You got to give people the benefit of the doubt that in our core, we want the best for the company. We want the best for the relationship. I think that you have to give people that benefit of the doubt that they're not in it to sink your ship. Right.
Yeah. I think it's pretty rare to find people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're out there, I'm sure. But I think for the most part, I try to give people I try to think that people are genuinely good.
They're good first.
Yeah. So this is a question I didn't really send ahead of time, but I'm thinking about it now. I will be interested, if you start to do crucial conversations, work it through, the chain, because as you get to people younger, more like my age, we're even in college, I just would email my professor or I'd text this person. You just don't have many in-person conversations and anything that makes you feel, quote unquote vulnerable. You can just, I feel so much safer just being well, just email them. And then I just don't have to work. I just think it'll be interesting to see how they'll maybe take on the training or think about crucial conversations and just getting them to even know that having in-person conversations is important, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they say, a majority of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It's a body language, it's tone, it's inflection, it's all these things. Yeah. And with email, all you get is the words, right? You don't get the inflection, you don't get the tone. That's why there's a lot of miscommunications a lot of times, is because people don't take the time to have those face-to-face conversations. It's just that easy to throw a text or to shoot an email. So, if it's crucial enough, it should be an in-person conversation.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or maybe it's because of those emails that you end up having to have a crucial
exactly. That could possibly be as well. Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it will be interesting to see the different generational.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess one more. Okay, I do have one more question.
Okay.
Did the trainings and stuff that you have to go to be a trainer, do you find them fun? Do you like them?
I love training. I love it. So before I was a project manager, I was actually working out of one of our sites in Monument, Colorado, where I hosted the new high orientation for 8 years. And I did all the trainings that, I think I like the interaction. I like seeing the aha moments in people, the light bulbs turning on, I like being able to give them that spark of enthusiasm. You go into some trainings. Have you ever been in a training where it's like Charlie Brown's teacher? And you're just dozing off and you can't pay attention because there's no inflection. Yes. Right? I'm like the opposite. So I go in with all the bells and whistles and all the energy, and I actually leave out of trainings exhausted because I give out so much of my energy. But that's what I love about it. I love making those connections with people. And if anybody, who's watching this and who, is reading the book, but is not quite sure how to implement, talk to your companies, Crucial Learning. And I'm not sponsored. Don't get me wrong. This is not a shameless plug. I don't work for Crucial Learning. But the 2-day class was amazing. It was amazing. So if you are somebody who learns more from doing or learns more from working through exercises with people, go try to find a class. It's a 2-day class and it is worth every penny. So see if your employer will, let you kind of put that in your growth plan and take the class. Right.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll have the link on our site.
We can put a link to that for sure. Yeah. That's
definitely.
So good.
That's great.
I think, I think people, especially in workplaces where you have so many different personalities working together, but any personality, can read that book and get something out of it. And, use
absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool.
That's great. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yes. You're welcome.
Taking your time with us.
Yeah.
I was just looking over my notes to see if there was anything that I missed.
Any key thoughts? That we missed.
I mean, I guess the key thought is that this is not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like I'm going to read the book and every conversation I have with my kids, my husband, my boss is going to be spot on.
Right.
Right. If that were the case, man, these people would be millionaires.
They would keep teaching.
Right. You couldn't keep teaching it. It's practice, right? You have to practice anything to become good at it. Don't skip the steps. Work through it. Don't skip the steps. And really just practice on your kids, practice on your husband, have some of these smaller conversations that maybe the risk is not so high. So that you do get a chance to practice, because that's where it's going to be, muscle memory, right? It's going to become a little easier to have each conversation after you practice from the last one. So that would be my takeaway from, to wrap it all up, is just practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. This is so
good. That's all self-growth takes that, I think.
It does.
Absolutely.
All personal growth just takes practice.
Definitely.
When we want to change and do something differently.
Yes.
And,
oh my gosh.
And anything worth doing is work, right? So put in the work.
Yeah,
exactly.
Put in the work.
Yeah. Be an Olympian in conversation.
There you go. Take the gold.
Oh my gosh. That's so good.
What can I say?
Thank you so much for giving us some of this insight into the book and having a crucial conversation and all of that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies, for approaching me on this. I love sharing the content, and it was a pleasure to meet you and work with you on this. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
Yes, and really quick, let's do our sign out. Yes, we will have links to all this stuff for all of you. We will follow our Instagram. If you have questions, we can always reference them to Jennifer for you. Right. And make sure to check out our website and to subscribe to our YouTube page. Yes.
Look forward to next Tuesday when we take a breath and take a listen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Incomplete Guide to Personal Growth. There are many ways you can stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at An Incomplete Guide Podcast, where you can sign up for our email list and get posts that delve deeper into our weekly topics. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast page wherever you listen to your podcasts. We would really appreciate a rating and sharing us with your family and friends.
We're so glad you chose to spend your time with us, and hope there was a thought, a resource, or a laugh that you can take on your journey. We'll be here every Tuesday for you to take a breath and take a listen.